The Aurora glided silently through the vast, uncharted space, its hull illuminated by faint blue navigation lights. Commander Reland Thorne and his crew were on the third week of a routine exploratory mission, patrolling the fringes of a distant star system. With each passing day, the hum of the ship and the familiar tasks kept the crew in an easy rhythm, a calm that Ryland knew could be shattered at any moment in this unpredictable frontier. Commander Ensign Mara called from the navigation console, her voice tense, picking up an anomaly at 2 o'clock. Well, I've never seen anything quite like it. Ryland crossed the bridge and looked at the display. The anomaly was a faint blip on their radar, pulsing with a strange energy signature that defied any of their familiar readings. A chill passed over him. "Bring it up on visual," Ensign, he ordered. The view screen flickered, adjusting to capture an image of the object. There, hanging in the darkness, was a vessel unlike any they had encountered before. Its surface shimmered with vibrant colors that seemed to shift and pulse like a living thing, casting hues of purple, green, and deep blue across the blackness of space. The ship's structure was sleek and flowing, as if it had been grown rather than built. It was hauntingly beautiful, yet carried an aura of something ancient and powerful. "Is that?" a live Lieutenant Gray whispered, his voice barely audible. Ryland felt the same awe mixed with unease. "Not sure. But it's definitely not from any faction we've encountered." As they watched, the alien vessel remained still, an enigmatic presence. Just as Ryland was about to issue a command to scan for life signs, the silence of the bridge was interrupted by a notification on his console. A message had been transmitted, though it was unreadable lines of symbols and patterns, unlike any language they had encountered. "Commander, I don't like this," murmured Specialist Carter. "Could be a trap. We don't know if they're friendly, or if they're even interested in peace." Ryland nodded thoughtfully. "We also don't know if they're a threat. But we're here to explore, and that means making contact." He took a steadying breath. "Prepare a small team. I'm going over there." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but they obeyed without question. Soon, Ryland and his team were suited up, ready to board the alien vessel. The plan was simple but risky: enter the ship carefully, attempt communication, and if possible, establish first contact. It was the kind of mission that could propel humanity's understanding of the universe forward or plunge them into an unknown danger. As they boarded the shuttle, Specialist Carter broke the silence with a smirk, trying to lighten the tension. "So, Commander, did you see that message back on the Aurora's console? Looked like some alien version of a video titled, 'Watch how 5 human soldiers came inside me from behind.'" The others chuckled nervously, the humor easing their tension. Ryland shook his head, allowing himself a slight grin. "Let's hope the alien sense of humor isn't the only thing we have in common." The shuttle ride was brief, and as they approached the vessel, its details grew clearer. Strange, intricate patterns adorned its surface, some glowing faintly as if reacting to their approach. Ryland couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was aware of them, that it was somehow watching. Docking was surprisingly easy, as though the ship had anticipated their arrival. The shuttle settled into an open bay, and the team disembarked, stepping into the unknown. The interior of the vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls seemed to pulse with a subtle, warm light, casting soft shadows that shifted as they moved. There was no clear technology, no consoles or screens, yet the ship felt alive. "Stay alert," Ryland said quietly, his voice a calm anchor amid the growing tension. "Remember, we're here to make contact. Keep your weapons holstered unless absolutely necessary." The team advanced cautiously, their boots echoing on the organic-seeming floors. They passed through corridors that twisted and turned as if grown from living tissue, their movements shadowed by the undulating light from the walls. Eventually, they entered a chamber, circular and bathed in soft violet light. At its center stood a figure, tall and slender, with a form that seemed both humanoid and otherworldly. The alien was unlike any species Ryland had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with iridescent hues, and its large, luminous eyes watched them with a quiet intensity. There was an elegance, almost a reverence, in the way it held itself, its presence calming yet commanding. Ryland's heart pounded as he met its gaze, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Before he could speak, A voice entered his mind, a soft, resonant tone that bypassed his ears entirely, speaking directly to his thoughts. "You have come seeking understanding. I am called Veye." Rieland froze, instinctively reaching up to his helmet, as if adjusting it would somehow clear the voice from his mind. But Veye's presence was undeniable, an energy that resonated within him, both alien and familiar. He steadied himself, trying to respond mentally, but his thoughts stumbled, untrained in this form of communication. "Veye, I am Commander Rieland Thorne of the ship Aurora. We come in peace." Veye's gaze softened, and Rieland felt a surge of curiosity and warmth ripple through their connection. "Your intentions resonate with mine. I am here, alone, seeking connection, as you are." The mental link grew stronger, and Rieland felt Veye's presence envelop his thoughts like a soft, guiding hand. For a moment he could sense Veye's emotions more vividly: loneliness, a yearning for connection, and a quiet sorrow that he couldn't fully understand. His team shifted uneasily, sensing his distraction. Commander Lieutenant Gray whispered, concern coloring his voice. Rieland held up a hand, signaling them to wait. He took a steadying breath and continued the mental dialogue. "My team and I, we mean you no harm. We seek to understand your kind, to learn." Veye inclined its head, a gesture that seemed almost human. "You seek knowledge, yet your people carry fear. It is not the first time we have encountered such. Fear has kept us apart, but perhaps it does not need to." The connection between them deepened, and Rieland felt Veye reaching into his mind, gently probing his memories, glimpsing fragments of his life, his responsibilities, his solitude. For an instant, Rieland wanted to pull back, to close off his thoughts, but he resisted. Instead, he allowed Veye to see, to understand. And in turn, Veye shared glimpses of its own life, images of distant worlds bathed in pale light, vast cities of shimmering structures that seemed to grow like plants, fields of glowing flora beneath an endless sky. He saw Veye standing alone on the edge of a vast canyon, its form silhouetted against the setting sun, and felt a pang of loneliness echo through their link. "You have known solitude, as I have," Veye's voice whispered in his mind, filled with a gentle empathy that took Rieland by surprise. "Yes," Rieland replied, his thoughts soft, "and duty. It has kept me from connection." Veye's gaze softened, and Rieland felt a warmth spread through him, a comfort he hadn't realized he needed. Their minds lingered together, unspoken words passing between them. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen. The moment was interrupted by Specialist Carter's nervous cough. "Commander, are we safe here?" Rieland glanced back at his team, the mental link with Veye gently loosening but not breaking. "Yes," he said aloud, his voice steady. "We're safe." Veye observed the soldiers, its gaze calm, unthreatening. "Your people are cautious, as are mine. Perhaps, Commander Rieland, you and I could show them. There is nothing to fear." Rieland nodded, understanding the request. He turned to his team, explaining what little he could of the connection he had with Veye, hoping to calm their nerves. They were skeptical but willing to follow his lead, a testament to the trust they held in him. Over the next hour, Veye began to share more, using the mental link to convey ideas and images that spoke of the Asari culture and history, a world built on mental harmony and unity, yet one that had faced centuries of isolation. Rieland sensed the yearning within Veye, a hope that their meeting might change the future, bringing their species out of isolation and into a shared galaxy. As the crew listened, Rieland felt the beginnings of something new, a bridge forming between them and this mysterious alien, a chance for peace that transcended language, even species. And he understood, with a clarity that reached beyond words, that this connection with Veye had the power to reshape their futures, to turn fear into understanding and loneliness into unity. "Perhaps," Veye's voice whispered in his mind, tender and filled with hope, "this is only the beginning, Commander." And in that moment, surrounded by his team and the enigmatic presence of Veye, Rieland believed it too. The silence on the Aurora's bridge was palpable, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems and the steady pulse of lights reflecting off the alien ship nearby. Commander Rieland Thorne could still feel the lingering sensation of Veye's presence in his mind, an echo of emotions and thoughts that seemed both profoundly intimate and overwhelmingly foreign. He had barely managed to explain the experience to his team, who watched him with a mixture of awe, curiosity, and thinly veiled concern. Raylan knew he couldn't delay. The Asari's telepathic connection was their only means of communication, and every second counted in forging a bond that could determine the future of both species. Vay had extended an invitation, an opening to reconnect on a deeper level, but it wasn't something Raylan could do alone. His team would have to trust him, and he would have to guide them through a journey they weren't prepared for. "All right," Raylan said, his voice steady but low, as he looked at each of his team members. "This alien Vay is offering to communicate, to bridge the gap between our worlds. But they don't communicate the way we do. They use a mental link. And it's intense. I know this may sound strange, but I need you to keep an open mind." Lieutenant Gray shifted uncomfortably, casting a glance toward Specialist Carter, who looked equally unsure. "Sir, are you saying this alien is reading your mind?" "Not quite," Raylan replied, choosing his words carefully. "It's more like sharing memories, emotions. It's not invasive exactly, but it's personal. They share pieces of themselves, and in turn, they glimpse pieces of us." Signed Mara, who had been quiet since their arrival on the alien vessel, took a tentative step forward. "Sir, do you really think we can trust them? I mean, what if this link is a trap? What if it's a way to control us?" Raylan met her gaze, understanding the fear that was likely gnawing at each of them. "I understand your concerns, Ensign. But I believe that Vay wants the same thing we do, understanding. I don't sense hostility. They're cautious, maybe even afraid, but there's no intent to harm us. We're as alien to them as they are to us." The room fell silent, each soldier weighing his words, the doubts and fears hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Specialist Carter cleared his throat, his expression resolute. "All right, Commander, if you trust this Vay, then I'm with you." The others nodded in reluctant agreement, and Raylan felt a surge of pride for his team's bravery. He knew this journey was as daunting for them as it was for him, but together, they had chosen to face the unknown. With a deep breath, Raylan reactivated the link, allowing Vay's presence to flow into his mind like a gentle current. This time, the sensation was stronger, more vivid, as if Vay were opening a deeper part of themselves. Raylan felt a warmth that was almost tangible, a sense of welcome and quiet curiosity that put him at ease. He reached out mentally, trying to convey the same trust in return, inviting Vay to join them. "Your thoughts. They are full of questions." Vay's voice resonated softly in his mind, carrying a calmness that seemed to ripple through him. "We are willing to answer as best we can." Raylan took a steadying breath and mentally projected a question. "Why have you chosen to communicate with us? What is it you seek?" Vay's response came not in words, but in a series of images and sensations, flashes of vast, ancient cities of crystalline towers and bridges that stretched across valleys, glistening with an inner light. He felt Vay's longing, a deep ache rooted in centuries of isolation. The Asari had once been explorers, a people connected to countless worlds through a shared mental network, their bonds stretching across light years. But something Raylan sensed a tragedy, something unspoken yet heavy, had driven them into solitude. "We have known loneliness, Commander Raylan," Vay's voice whispered, layered with a sadness that Raylan felt as his own. "We had many worlds, many voices. But now we seek to connect again, to find trust in those who are different." Raylan absorbed this, feeling the weight of their words. He glanced at his team, who were watching him intently, unaware of the depth of the exchange taking place. He turned to Vay with a quiet resolve. "We understand loneliness too. My people, my team. Each of us feels it, even if we don't show it." In response, he felt a ripple of warmth from Vay, as though they understood. With that silent acknowledgement, Vay extended an offer, an invitation for Raylan's team to experience a direct, temporary link with the Asari. The gesture was significant, an act of trust that Vay had never extended to any non-Asari before. Raylan turned to his team, trying to explain. "Vay wants to share more of their world, their experiences. But to do that, they need each of you to open yourselves to the link, just briefly. You'll feel their emotions, maybe even see their memories." Lieutenant Gray looked uneasy but nodded. "If this is what it takes, sir, I'm willing." One by one, The others agreed, though Rylan could sense the trepidation in each of them. With a nod, he instructed them to close their eyes and focus on clearing their minds, creating a receptive mental space. Then he signaled to Vei, who gently extended the link to each of them. The connection was instant and overwhelming. Each member of the team was enveloped in a surge of sensations, images of the Isari world flashing through their minds, crystalline forests that hummed with energy, twilight cities under skies painted in hues no human eye had ever seen, and streams of light flowing like rivers. Connecting Isari minds across vast distances, Rylan felt his team's awe as they experienced this world, and in turn, he sensed Vei's cautious hope, a fragile feeling that bloomed within the link, growing stronger as they shared in the Isari's vision. The memories carried a weight, as though each glimpse held stories and secrets buried deep within the Isari's history. And then, just as suddenly, the memory changed. Rylan found himself standing in a place of desolation, the once glowing forests now charred and lifeless, cities reduced to shadows, and the air thick with a sense of loss. Through the link, he felt Vei's sorrow, a pain that seemed endless, boundless. Our people were torn apart by distrust, by the fear of those different from us, Vei's voice whispered, heavy with remorse. We fear the same may happen with you, with all those we wish to connect with. The team gasped softly, each feeling the weight of this revelation. Rylan felt his own heart ache with Vei's sorrow, but he also felt something else, a resolve. He turned to Vei, his thoughts clear, his conviction strong. We aren't bound to repeat the past, Vei. This connection, this bond, it's a chance to build something different. We can choose to trust. The link seemed to pulse with gratitude, and Vei's presence brightened, filling each of them with a warmth that chased away the darkness of the Isari's memories. In that moment, Rylan and his team experienced something extraordinary, a sense of unity, of shared purpose that transcended words or cultural barriers. They were not just humans in Isari, strangers from different worlds, they were allies, bound by a mutual desire for understanding. As the mental link gradually receded, Vei offered a final image in Isari's city rebuilt, shining brighter than before, its people connected once more, not just among themselves but with allies from distant stars. The image lingered, a promise of what could be, if they chose the path of trust and connection. Rylan opened his eyes, meeting the gaze of his team. Each of them looked profoundly moved, their expressions softened by what they had seen and felt. He turned back to Vei, his heart full, his voice steady. We understand, Vei, and we're ready to take that step with you. You have my trust and my word that we'll work toward this future, together. Vei inclined their head, a silent acknowledgement of the promise shared between them. In that moment, Rylan felt the weight of a bond that transcended space and species, a connection that held the potential to reshape not only their futures but the futures of countless others. Together, they had bridged a gap that had once seemed insurmountable. And as they stood in the quiet glow of the alien ship, Rylan knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side, their minds and hearts open to a new beginning. The days that followed their initial encounter with Vei were unlike any the crew of the Aurora had ever experienced. The intensity of the mental link and the shared memories had left each of them quietly shaken yet profoundly curious. Commander Rylan Thorne could sense a subtle change in his team, a shift from wariness to a guarded openness as they began to understand the depth of the Isari's intent. Vei had not only extended an invitation to communicate but had also exposed vulnerabilities that made the entire crew question the very boundaries between species, between trust and fear. As the ship drifted through space alongside the Isari vessel, the connection between Rylan and Vei deepened. They met in the dimly lit communication chamber aboard the alien ship each day, their minds intertwining more easily with every encounter. Rylan felt the link growing stronger, as if each session built a bridge of understanding, layer by layer. It was still strange to him, to feel another's thoughts as though they were his own, to witness fragments of Vei's experiences, emotions, and hopes. Yet the bond was undeniably powerful, a direct connection that he had never imagined sharing with another being. One evening, as they sat across from each other in the alien ship's central chamber, Vei invited Rylan to experience a memory more intimate than any before, a glimpse into the Isari's long history. The root of their solitude and the ancient wound that still lingered within their collective consciousness. The memory came not in words or distinct images, but as a series of sensations and emotions, each one more vivid than the last. Rieland closed his eyes, focusing on the memory as it unfolded in his mind. He felt himself standing in a vast, shimmering city under a sky filled with swirling lights, an Asari metropolis filled with tall, delicate towers that pulsed with an energy he could feel as a gentle hum within his chest. Around him, he sensed other Asari, their presence like gentle waves, each consciousness blending with the others in harmony. It was a world filled with voices, not heard aloud but felt within a constant stream of thoughts. Emotions and ideas exchanged freely among the Asari as naturally as breathing. The connection was exhilarating yet deeply intimate, a shared existence where loneliness was unknown and trust was woven into the fabric of their society. Rieland felt a pang of yearning within himself as he experienced the memory, a wistful longing for that closeness, for a life where walls between minds didn't exist, where isolation was impossible. But then, as the memory shifted, he sensed a sudden tension, a quiet unease threading through the harmony. He felt a shadow creep into the minds around him, a flicker of doubt and caution that spread like a dark wave through the network. The Asari were encountering something new, something that didn't share their openness, something that introduced fear into their once peaceful minds. This new presence, a species they had reached out to across the stars, brought with it thoughts of distrust, walls of secrecy, and an instinct to guard their emotions. This intrusion, though unintentional, began to strain the Asari's natural state, filling their shared consciousness with a discomfort they didn't know how to dispel. Rieland felt the sharp pain of that fracture, a sorrow that radiated from the Asari's collective mind as their connection to each other was disrupted. Some Asari chose to withdraw, severing their ties to protect themselves, while others attempted to rebuild the link, to hold on to the unity that had been their way of life. The memory ended in an overwhelming silence, a void where once there had been harmony. The Asari retreated from this foreign species, choosing solitude over vulnerability. Rieland opened his eyes, his chest heavy as the memory faded. He looked at Vae, who sat quietly across from him, their expression solemn. In that moment, he understood the depth of what the Asari had sacrificed to protect themselves, the pain of closing themselves off from others to ensure their survival. "You withdrew," Rieland projected, his thoughts filled with empathy. "You chose isolation to avoid the pain of misunderstanding." Vae inclined their head, their large, luminous eyes meeting his. "Yes, and it has cost you us much. Loneliness has become a familiar companion, one we do not wish upon others. Yet, Commander, you and your crew." Vae's voice trembled with a quiet hope. "You are different. You seek to understand." Rieland felt the weight of that hope, the Asari's longing for connection reaching across the gulf of their history and his own. He reached back mentally, allowing Vae to sense his own memories and return his earliest days in the military, the friendships forged under fire, the losses that haunted him, the sense of duty that bound him to his team. But beyond the duty, he shared the loneliness that had followed him for years, the feeling of never quite belonging, of always keeping himself guarded, even among friends. Vae's presence filled with warmth, a compassion that wrapped around Rieland's memories like a gentle embrace. "In this we are alike," Vae whispered, their thoughts resonating with his. "Isolation is a burden neither of our kind should bear alone." As days passed, the link between them grew increasingly nuanced. Vae began to teach Rieland the subtleties of Asari telepathy, guiding him to navigate emotions and thoughts more freely within the bond. Rieland learned how to sense feelings that lay beneath the surface, to perceive intentions without words, and to communicate in ways that transcended language. It was a skill that required vulnerability, an openness he had spent his life protecting, yet with Vae he found himself letting those barriers down. In the meantime, his crew observed the change in him. Lieutenant Gray, usually stoic and reserved, found himself asking questions about the Asari, about what Rieland had experienced in the link. Specialist Carter, initially wary, grew intrigued, even respectful, as Rieland described the Asari's history and the way they shared their lives through mental bonds. One evening, as they gathered in the Aurora's common area, Ensign Murrah finally asked what they had all been wondering. "Commander, what is it like to open your mind to someone so completely?" Rieland took a moment, searching for the right words. It's It's like standing at the edge of something vast, something unknown, and letting yourself fall, trusting that the other will catch you. It's raw, and sometimes it's overwhelming. But there's a freedom in it, too. A chance to be understood in a way words can't convey. The crew exchanged glances, thoughtful, even wistful. In that moment, Rylan realized that the bond he had forged with Vey was beginning to bridge the gap between their species and his team, spreading the trust he had cultivated into a shared hope for understanding. Later, when he rejoined Vey on the alien vessel, he felt the link open between them with ease, as though it had become a natural extension of his thoughts. But this time, Vey brought forth a different memory, one that made Rylan's heart ache with unexpected intensity. It was a memory of laughter, of joy shared among the Asari, as they gathered under a sky filled with shimmering lights. The memory was bright, filled with warmth and an unmistakable sense of community. In that instant, Rylan understood the loss Vey had endured, the weight of isolation they had chosen to bear. And he felt a fierce determination rise within him, a desire to make this connection count, to bring that light, that sense of belonging, back to the Asari. Vey, he thought, his mind reaching out with the strength of his resolve, we won't let this end in solitude. We'll build something together, a bridge between our people. You won't have to face the stars alone. Vey's response was a mixture of relief and gratitude, a feeling so profound that Rylan's heart swelled with it. In that moment, he felt as if he had not only bridged the distance between two species, but had also found a kinship that defied the vastness of space, a bond that went beyond duty, beyond alliance. It was a bond of trust, a promise that they would face the unknown together. As they shared this silent vow, Rylan knew that the future of humanity and the Asari rested not on grand speeches or political treaties, but on moments like this, moments of quiet connection, of courage, and of trust that could transcend even the greatest divides. Together, they had turned an encounter into an alliance, and for the first time, both Rylan and Vey understood what it truly meant to be united in purpose and in spirit. The days aboard the Aurora grew tense. Though Commander Rylan Thorne's connection with Vey had brought hope for a peaceful alliance, his crew's unease simmered beneath the surface, barely concealed by their disciplined exteriors. The mental link was unlike anything they had trained for, and as much as they respected Rylan, the crew struggled to understand the bond he had forged with the Asari. It was a connection that, to them, bordered on unnatural, a line crossed between trust and vulnerability, even control. The first sign of trouble came one evening as the crew gathered for a meal in the ship's mess. The air was heavy, filled with unspoken questions and mounting tension. Lieutenant Gray, who had always been steadfast and focused, broke the silence, his voice low but edged with frustration. "Commander, with all due respect, I'm worried." This connection with Vey, he hesitated, looking around the table at the others, who nodded subtly in agreement. "It's starting to change you. We've all noticed it. You're different since this bond began. Are you sure it's safe?" Rylan set his utensil down, taking a steadying breath before responding. He'd sensed their discomfort for days, but now it was out in the open, a quiet confrontation he couldn't ignore. "Gray, I understand your concerns. I know this isn't easy to accept, especially when so much is unknown. But this link, what I share with Vey, it's an opportunity. For peace, for understanding. We've been given a chance to prevent conflict, maybe even create an alliance." Gray's jaw clenched. "But at what cost, sir? You're letting this alien into your mind. How do we know it's not manipulating you?" Specialist Carter, seated across from Gray, folded his arms, a skeptical look on his face. "Gray's right. We've all heard stories about telepathic species who use their abilities to control others. How can we be certain that Vey's intentions are honest?" The question hit Rylan harder than he'd expected. He had been so immersed in the depth of his connection with Vey that he hadn't fully considered how it appeared to his team, how it might feel to see their commander, their anchor, entrusting his mind to an alien. And though he wanted to dismiss their fears, he couldn't deny that the link with Vey had changed him, opened parts of himself he'd kept guarded. "I understand your worry," Rylan said, his voice measured. "But Vey has shown nothing but respect. The Asari have known loneliness, a solitude that's hard for us to imagine. What they seek isn't control, it's connection. I've seen their history, their memories. They're reaching out, just as we are." Ensign Mara, who had been listening in silence, spoke up, her tone hesitant but sincere. Commander, I don't doubt your judgment, but maybe we could observe the link just once. Maybe if we could see what you experience with Vei, we'd understand better. Rillin considered her words, feeling a pang of conflict. Allowing the crew to experience the link would mean exposing them to Vei's vulnerability and trust an intimate space that might deepen their understanding, but also risk betraying Vei's privacy. Before he could answer, the conversation was interrupted by an alert flashing on the control panel. Specialist Carter, who had been watching the system displays, narrowed his eyes at the monitor. Commander, I'm picking up movement. There's an Isari ship approaching, matching pace with ours. Rillin's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't been informed of any additional Isari vessels, and the arrival of another ship without warning was unusual. The bridge was soon filled with the tension of alert status as the crew took their stations, monitoring the new arrival closely. Within moments, Rylan sensed Vei reaching out, their mental presence filled with concern. Commander Rillin, Vei's voice echoed in his mind, carrying a thread of unease. I was unaware of this vessel. It is not part of my mission. The alien ship loomed closer on their radar, its silhouette stark against the stars. Lieutenant Gray's voice broke the silence, thick with suspicion. Commander, this doesn't feel right. How do we know Vei isn't orchestrating this? How do we know this isn't a trap? Rillin shook his head, feeling Vei's apprehension through their link. I don't believe it's a threat, he replied, his thoughts directed at Vei. But I need you to be honest with us, Vei. Could this ship be here to interfere? Vei's response was filled with a sincerity that Rillin felt in his core. I do not control my people's movements, Commander. This was not intended. But perhaps they have come to ensure my safety, to understand what I have found here with you. Rillin relayed Vei's words to the crew, but he could see the skepticism in their faces, the doubt deepening in their eyes. Gray's hand lingered near his weapon, and Carter's face remained stony. To them, this was proof that the Isari could not be fully trusted, that their commander was placing his faith in a species whose true motives they couldn't comprehend. As the alien ship approached, Rillin felt the weight of his crew's fear pressing in on him. He realized, painfully, that he was standing on a precipice between trust and betrayal, between his team's loyalty and his belief in Vei's sincerity. He had to make a choice, either reinforce his commitment to his crew or continue down a path that risked alienating them further. Finally, he turned to his team, his voice steady but urgent. I understand what this looks like, but if we act out of fear, we're only proving the Isari's doubts about us. I believe Vei wants peace, and I trust them with my life. I need you to trust me in return. Gray's jaw tightened, his gaze filled with doubt. Commander, I don't question your intent. But if this alien vessel poses a threat, we'll defend ourselves. Rillin nodded, feeling the strain of his divided loyalties. He could sense Vei's presence, filled with tension and uncertainty. He reached out mentally, his thoughts firm yet reassuring. Vei, my team is cautious, and understandably so. But if you can, reach out to that ship. Show them we mean no harm. After a pause, Vei's response was quiet yet resolute. I will try, Commander. I will ask them to stand down, to allow us to continue in peace. The next moments felt like hours, the crew waiting in strained silence as the alien ship loomed closer. Finally, as the vessel reached what could only be described as a standoff, the Isari ship stopped. It held position, maintaining a distance that conveyed neither threat nor submission. A ripple of relief washed over Rylan, and he felt a wave of gratitude from Vei. The link between them seemed to settle, calming, as if the moment had deepened their trust even further. Yet he could see that the tension with his crew had not dissipated. This encounter had left a scar, a quiet but undeniable rift between their loyalty to him and their unease with the Isari. As the night wore on, the alien ship remained nearby, a silent reminder of the fragile alliance they had begun to forge. Rylan sat alone in his quarters, staring at the stars outside his window, feeling the weight of his responsibilities. The link with Vei was still there, a comforting presence that he had come to rely on, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that his crew's trust was slipping through his fingers. In that quiet moment, Vei reached out once more, their presence warm, offering a silent reassurance. We will find peace, Commander. Trust is not easily won, but it will be worth the struggle. Rillin let out a breath. Finding solace in the alien's words, he knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, that his loyalty would be tested again and again. But for now, with Vey's presence grounding him, he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of a future where his crew and the Asari could stand together united, not by force, but by a hard-won understanding that bridged the void between them. The alien vessel hung just beyond the Aurora, a silent, watchful presence in the dark expanse of space. Days had passed since its arrival, yet the tension within the Aurora was at an all-time high. Commander Reelan Thorne could feel the weight of his crew's unease bearing down on him, and even his connection with Vey, once a source of clarity and trust, now felt tinged with urgency. The Asari's telepathic presence was steady, but Rylan sensed a growing fear in Vey, a worry that echoed his own. As he paced the ship's bridge, trying to devise a strategy, Lieutenant Gray approached him, his expression serious. "Commander, we're running out of time. The crew is on edge, and the longer that Asari ship stays out there, the more dangerous this situation becomes. We need a plan. Are we prepared if they turn hostile?" Rylan looked at Gray, understanding the worry beneath his words. His crew was ready to act if necessary, but Rylan knew that engaging in a standoff with the Asari would destroy any hope of peace. He also knew that his link with Vey had pushed his crew's trust to its limit. They didn't understand the connection he shared with Vey, and to them, it looked as though he was placing his faith in an alien over his own team. He met Gray's gaze steadily. "We're not here to start a war, Gray. I believe Vey is trying to prevent one just as much as we are. They've been open with me, and I don't believe they would betray us now. But you're right, we need to resolve this before someone makes a mistake." Just as he spoke, Vey's presence flared in his mind, more intense than ever before. Rylan felt a surge of desperation, a torrent of emotions rushing through their link: worry, fear, a quiet but undeniable determination. "Commander Rylan," Vey's voice echoed in his mind, calm but filled with a quiet urgency. "My people. They are questioning this alliance. They do not understand the connection we have made, and they fear it may be a threat to our solitude. They may demand that I return, breaking the link we share." Rylan's heart clenched at the thought. Their link was more than just a means of communication. It had become a bond built on trust, a rare and powerful connection that held the potential to unite their species. But he also understood the weight of Vey's situation. The Asari, just like his crew, had doubts, and Vey was caught between their loyalty to Rylan and their duty to their own people. "What can we do, Vey?" Rylan projected, his thoughts filled with worry. "There must be a way to show them that this alliance is worth pursuing." Vey hesitated, and Rylan sensed the alien struggling with a decision, weighing the risks. Finally, Vey's response came, quieter now, almost as though they feared the strength of their own resolve. "There may be a way to convince them, but it requires a sacrifice." Rylan's pulse quickened. "What kind of sacrifice?" "I would need to show them the truth of our connection, openly and without barriers. To do this, I would have to fully merge our minds, allowing the Asari leaders to witness our bond through me. But such a merge is dangerous. For both of us. If the link cannot hold, it could harm you even. Damage parts of your memory." Rylan didn't hesitate. "If this will prevent conflict, if it will prove to both our people that peace is possible, then I'll do it." Vey's presence pulsed with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "I had feared you would say that, Commander. I do not wish to harm you, but if you are willing, then I will begin the merge. It will require both strength and vulnerability, for I will see parts of you that even you may not wish to share, and you will see mine." Rylan took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of what they were about to attempt. Yet despite the fear, he felt a strange peace within himself. He trusted Vey in a way he hadn't trusted anyone in years. Through the link, he sensed his crew watching him, sensing the shift in his focus. Though they couldn't feel what he felt, he knew they understood that he was about to take a step that could alter the course of their mission and their lives. Turning to the crew, he addressed them one last time. "I need you to trust me. What I'm about to do is dangerous, but I believe it's our best chance at avoiding a conflict with the Asari. If this doesn't work, then defend yourselves as best you can." Lieutenant Gray nodded, though his eyes held a flicker of concern. "Understood, Commander. We're with you." Rylan nodded. then closed his eyes, opening his mind fully to Vei, inviting them to begin the merge. The moment they connected, Raylan felt his mind expand, as if his consciousness were pulled beyond the boundaries of his own thoughts and into an endless landscape of memories and emotions. Vei's presence enveloped him, filling every corner of his mind, and he felt himself slipping into the aliens' memories, experiencing their life as if it were his own. He saw Vei's childhood, a time of innocence spent in the crystalline forests of their world, where young Asari learned to link their minds in harmony, their voices joining as one. He felt the joy of unity, of a connection so profound that loneliness was nothing more than a distant concept. But then the memories shifted, and he felt the wrenching sorrow as their people's trust was betrayed by an outside species, leading the Asari to sever their connections with others, choosing isolation to protect themselves. The pain of that choice reverberated through Vei's mind, an ache that had lingered for centuries, shaping the Asari's guarded way of life. Raylan felt tears in his own eyes as he experienced the aliens' sorrow, a grief so deep it had become part of their identity. Then suddenly he felt Vei slip deeper into his mind, gently probing his own memories. Raylan tensed, feeling a wave of vulnerability, but he resisted the urge to pull back, allowing Vei to see his life. He sensed Vei witnessing his own memories, his early days in the academy, the friendships he had forged, the moments of triumph and heartbreak that had defined him. Vei lingered on a memory that Raylan had long kept buried: the loss of his closest friend, a fellow officer who had sacrificed his life during a mission gone wrong. The memory was raw, filled with guilt and regret, an open wound Raylan had never fully allowed himself to heal. Vei felt his pain, his struggle to keep others at a distance, fearing that he might lose them too. "You have known loss, as we have," Vei's thoughts whispered, laced with empathy. "Perhaps that is why we found each other." Raylan felt a strange release within himself, a weight lifted by the aliens' understanding. Through this shared vulnerability, he realized they were not just two individuals from different species, they were kindred spirits, bound by loss and a longing for connection. But just as the merge reached its peak, Raylan felt a sudden strain in the link, a pressure that threatened to overwhelm him. The intensity of their connection was pushing his mind to its limits, and he sensed Vei struggling to maintain the link, their own energy faltering. "Commander," Vei's voice trembled, filled with regret. "If the link holds any longer, it will harm you. I cannot let you suffer for our peace." Raylan clenched his fists, fighting to hold on. "I don't care about the risk, Vei. I believe in this bond. In you." In that final moment, Raylan felt a surge of energy, a strength born from the unity of their connection. Together, they focused their thoughts, directing their shared memories toward the Asari leaders, who were observing through Vei. Raylan sent forth every emotion he held: hope, trust, and the shared understanding that had blossomed between him and Vei. He poured himself into the link, bearing his soul in a final plea for peace. Then, as the last of his strength faded, he felt the link soften, dissolving gently. His mind returned to itself, the world around him coming back into focus. His vision blurred as he opened his eyes, and he saw his crew gathered around him, their faces filled with a mixture of awe and concern. Vei's presence in his mind was faint now, but he felt a quiet assurance, a warmth that told him they had succeeded. "Thank you, Commander," Vei's voice murmured, filled with gratitude. "Your trust has given my people a new path, one we thought lost forever." Raylan, exhausted but resolute, managed a faint smile. "We'll walk that path together, Vei, as allies, as friends." As the Asari ship slowly withdrew, signaling its acceptance of peace, Raylan felt the weight of his sacrifice settle over him. The bond he had forged with Vei had cost him deeply, but it had also brought him a connection that transcended words or species. And as he looked at his crew, he saw a new understanding in their eyes, a respect for the choice he had made, and perhaps a glimpse of the unity he had fought so hard to achieve. In the quiet that followed the Asari ship's withdrawal, the crew of the Aurora gathered on the bridge, each of them wearing expressions of awe and wonder. Commander Raylan Thorne felt a profound sense of relief mingled with exhaustion, his mind still carrying the faint echoes of Vei's presence. The memory of their connection lingered within him, as though a part of the alien still resided in his thoughts, a gentle reminder of the bond they had formed. The weeks that followed were filled with careful diplomacy and tentative steps as the Asari and humanity sought to establish an official alliance. The communication channels were kept open, with Vei acting as the liaison between the two species. Rieland's connection with Vei had become the cornerstone of this new relationship, a symbol of what was possible when trust replaced fear. The crew, once skeptical, now looked to him not just as a commander but as a bridge to the unknown, a leader who had proven that connection was worth any risk. One afternoon, as the Aurora drifted in orbit near the designated Asari space, Vei transmitted a message to the bridge, a formal invitation for Rieland to attend a ceremony on the Asari homeworld. It was an unprecedented gesture, an honor that signified the Asari's commitment to this alliance. The invitation was brief, written in Asari symbols, but accompanied by Vei's thoughts, which resonated in Rieland's mind with warmth and sincerity. Commander Rieland, we wish for you to witness our world as we once shared it with you in memory. Join us so we may commemorate this new path, this bond that we have built across the stars. Rieland felt a swell of emotion, the invitation both a gift and a challenge, a step deeper into the unknown. He knew his crew would have concerns, but he also sensed their quiet pride and respect for him. This invitation wasn't just his alone, it was for all of them, for humanity, and for everything they represented. As he prepared for the journey, Rieland met with his crew, discussing the protocols, reviewing plans, and ensuring they would be safe in Asari territory. Despite the initial hesitation, he could feel a change in them. Gray, Mara, Carter, and the others who had once been doubtful now spoke of the Asari with curiosity, even admiration. Their views had evolved, shaped by Rieland's experience and the link he had forged with Vei. For the first time, Rieland felt his team was truly united not just by duty but by a shared belief in what they could accomplish together. The day of the journey arrived, and Rieland found himself aboard a small Asari shuttle, feeling the familiar sense of calm as Vei's presence returned to his mind, guiding him across the stars. The journey to the Asari world was brief, but Rieland found himself captivated by the shifting landscapes he glimpsed through the viewports. The closer they drew, the more he saw crystalline cities that glistened under a pale, luminous sky, forests of tall, silver trees that seemed to glow with an inner light, and fields of bioluminescent flora stretching as far as the eye could see. When they finally landed, Vei met him at the edge of the Asari capital, a vast, breathtaking city with structures that rose like living sculptures, their forms both organic and architectural, seeming to grow from the ground itself. Vei's form shimmered in the soft light, their expression filled with warmth as they approached Rieland. "Welcome to Orisha," Vei's voice echoed gently in his mind, tinged with pride and joy. "This is where our people first began their journey, where our minds first joined as one." Rieland took in the view, feeling the awe of this place settle over him. He could sense the history, the weight of centuries of Asari life, and the hope that now filled their shared space. "It's more beautiful than I could have imagined," he replied, his voice soft. They walked together through the streets of Orisha, Vei guiding him through places that felt at once familiar and otherworldly. The Asari of all ages moved in small groups, many of them pausing to regard Rieland with curiosity and respect. To see an outsider welcomed on their homeworld was a rare sight, and he felt their minds brush lightly against his own, each contact brief yet filled with warmth. Finally, Vei led him to a large gathering space, an open plaza where the Asari had gathered for the ceremony. Rieland stood beside Vei at the center of the assembly, surrounded by hundreds of Asari, their forms shimmering under the soft light. A quiet hush fell over the crowd as Vei raised their hand, signaling the start of the ceremony. Vei's voice filled the air, resonating not only in sound but through the mental link shared among all the Asari present. "Today we celebrate a bond beyond distance, beyond words. This human, Commander Rieland Thorne, has shown us the courage to trust, to open one's mind and heart despite fear and uncertainty. Together we have created a bridge where there once was a divide." Rieland felt his heart pound, their words washing over him like a wave. Vei turned to him, their thoughts reaching out, inviting him to join the link, to share his own thoughts with the gathered Asari. Taking a steadying breath, Rieland opened his mind, letting his thoughts flow. "I am honored to stand here among you," he projected, feeling the connection ripple out to the crowd. "Meeting Vei, sharing our minds, has changed me. I have seen your world, your memories, and I know the beauty of the connection you hold dear. I came here seeking knowledge, but I found something far greater, a kinship, a trust I never thought possible. The crowd stirred, their collective thoughts radiating understanding and gratitude. Raylan felt the power of the moment, the significance of this alliance, and he realized that this bond extended beyond him and Vey. It was a promise that both their species were making to each other, a commitment to face the unknown together. As the ceremony drew to a close, Vey turned to him, their gaze filled with a quiet, almost bittersweet warmth. "Commander, we have given each other a gift that will outlast both of us. And though you may return to your people, know that our bond will remain. You have a place here among the Asari should you ever wish to return." Raylan's throat tightened, feeling the weight of Vey's words. "Thank you, Vey. This alliance, this connection, it's a promise I will honor, always." Vey inclined their head, and Raylan sensed a calm satisfaction within them, a fulfillment of a long-held hope. As the Asari dispersed, Raylan remained on the plaza with Vey, gazing out at the city that stretched before them, a landscape that now held a special place in his heart. Afterward, Vey accompanied him back to the shuttle, the two of them sharing a comfortable silence as they prepared to part. Raylan felt the connection between them, the lingering sense of unity that no distance could diminish. He knew that his journey back to Earth would not sever the bond, it would continue, a quiet thread linking him to this world, to Vey, and to the promise they had made. As he boarded the shuttle, Vey offered him one final thought, their voice filled with a gentle assurance. "No matter where you go, Commander Raylan, know that you carry the Asari's trust and friendship. And one day, when our people walk among the stars together, remember that it began with you." Raylan smiled, his hand resting on the edge of the shuttle's doorway. "I won't forget, and I'll carry this promise with me always." With a last nod, he stepped into the shuttle, watching as Vey's form grew smaller with each passing moment, until Orissia was but a distant shimmer on the horizon. As he returned to the Aurora, Raylan felt a renewed sense of purpose. This journey had been more than just an exploration mission. It had been the start of a new chapter, a chance for humanity to look beyond its own borders, to seek connection in the vastness of space. And with the bond he had formed with Vey, he knew they had laid the foundation for something extraordinary, a future in which humans and Asari would stand side by side, united in friendship and hope. Back on the Aurora, his crew greeted him with smiles and words of welcome, a sign that they, too, felt the change. Raylan gathered them together, sharing the story of his time on the Asari homeworld, recounting the ceremony and the promise he had made. As they listened, he could see the wonder and pride in their faces, each of them recognizing the significance of what they had accomplished. Together, they prepared to journey back to human space, their course set for familiar stars. But Raylan knew that, from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. They were not just explorers, they were ambassadors, carrying the torch of a new alliance that stretched beyond borders and worlds, a promise that would echo across the galaxy, binding humanity and the Asari in a shared destiny. And as the Aurora sailed forward, Raylan felt a quiet contentment, a certainty that they had created something lasting, something beautiful, a future of unity, forged in trust and tempered by the stars.